If you came here for the energy prayer only, then this is your time to leave. You can stay for the live energy talk with everyone. All right, this is a tradition that we've started 1.5 years ago, right at the begin of the pandemic. We started the daily selves, the meditation together as a group. And we are still doing this. There is a group of 11 practitioners, energy healers, and energy coaches who are offering this on Skype every day, different times of the day. Yeah, you would have to check my website or the threads to see the different times, okay? And what we do there, and we're going to model this here today, is similar like we did in the energy prayer. We're contemplating about certain topics together, talk about it, exchange our thoughts, learn new things, and then we're going to go into the inner experience of that topic by meditating together for 20 minutes. This is something unusual. You don't see this very often live because it's obviously a bit of a vulnerable space, right? Because in that moment when we all meditate, we go really deep within. And that's not something we're used to sharing with other people. This is the reason, why I introduce these live meditations here with random people, okay? To just simply get used to this and to feel the connection that can be produced this way when we do this together. There's nothing vulnerable about wanting to explore something from within. And in our energy prayer session, we just had a very fundamental subject come up, namely the ability to discern truth from within. And I want to send this straight at you now. Maybe after the energy prayer, it's a bit of a dur for you, but how can we cultivate this? How can we learn to discern, to feel, to see, choose from within, to know better what is right for us, to know better when whatever information is presented to us doesn't feel integrous, say, maybe even sort of the practical use of knowing when somebody's lying to us, yeah? So the ability to discern truth sounds a bit up there, but there are many, many practical and pragmatic uses to that. But how can we even train that? Who of you has learned that in school? Who of you has learned that through their parents? Awareness warriors bringing in a very interesting aspect. I think it's innate, but it hides in the shadow as a bad thing, as a something that we need to protect. I agree with you. That's a very good thought. I agree with you fully that it's innate. But you bringing in the aspect that it can hide itself, and that has a lot to do with our conditioning, our socialization, like what we were taught how to, or how we were schooled, all right, to discern truth. And sometimes that can be different from how we feel this from within, right? Linda is sharing, for me, it is to let go of my ego and ask divinity for guidance. That's already a deep thought, Linda, because look, what you admitting to yourself is that your ego, okay, so that let's just agree that ego is a certain way of thinking or a certain way of seeing things, can be biased, can be narrow. What can our ego perception be biased by or from? Fears, desires. We can have a belief that can make us look at things in certain ways, right? I mean, there's a lot of room for error here. Yeah, one and the same thing that we are looking at or information that we're getting in can appear quite differently depending on the state that we're in or the circumstances that we're in. And our ego is the part that more or less decides how we want to see it. And when the ego is biased, yeah, I'm sure we're all old enough to know that we've experienced things like that before, where we weren't able to see it for what it is. Yes, we did not learn this in school. Cindy is bringing in another aspect. When I feel expansive, like in the prayer session, I know I'm on the right or a higher vibrational path. Cindy, let's look at this here. What you're saying is multiple things at once. You're saying that, first of all, your goal is to be on a higher vibrational path. That is a bias. Yeah? Whether a person deems this to be a good goal or a bad goal is irrelevant, but be aware that what you're expressing here is that you want to be on a higher vibrational path, meaning that you're trying to improve. You see life as a learning experience, and you're assuming that there's a constant sort of evolution, a constant improvement possible. That's one aspect of what you're expressing in your sentence. Then you're using the word right. Okay, right means that there's a part of you, and this is the ego part, right, that tries to figure out if you're on the right or wrong path. Yeah, why can we question if we're on the right or wrong path? Because we may have already experienced something like we thought we were on the right path, but turns out we weren't. And then the third aspect that you're bringing in here is your current state. When you feel expansive, then you can feel it better. All right, so that requires a person to even have that awareness of knowing when they're feeling expansive, yeah, to even have a reference feeling for that, and when they're not. So these three things here are expressed in your statement, and this is absolutely correct. We have to look at our current state. And the word expansive is a energy lingo word. Really what we're saying is when we feel free, when we feel, that we have the right to be here, the right to grow, yeah, have the right to think for ourselves. That's what expansive means. It means that we can feel that we can expand. When we feel contracted, then we feel the opposite of that. We feel like we're imprisoned, or we don't have the right to grow, or we don't deserve to grow, or we don't deserve more. Now that's the difference between expansive and contractive. But it can feel, for each and every one of us, it can feel very different. So these three different aspects that you are bringing up here, I want to turn them into like different training tools or training methods that we need to align ourselves to. Number one is to become more aware of the state that we are currently in, to increase our literacy, yeah, to be able to report this to ourselves in a neutral way, to say, oh, right now I feel, that I feel overpowered, I feel overwhelmed, it makes me feel powerless, it makes me feel very contracted, it makes me feel very imprisoned. Do you guys believe that in that kind of state you can come up with like huge sort of life-changing positive solutions? Have you ever tried to find a so-called higher vibratory solution, a solution that can help you out-vibrate your current misery when you are in a contractive state? No. No, it's not possible, because in that moment, your perception is so biased and so restricted, yeah, preoccupied, if you will, by the experience itself. Yeah, you're so busy with experiencing powerlessness, the nervousness, the stress, and the contraction, yeah, that you can't even see or imagine yourself, or fragmented, yes, exactly. You can't even see yourself, you can't even imagine yourself to find a better solution. And you seize the loop, right? Because then all it really does is reinforce your belief that you're screwed, right? That you're powerless. Yes. So this is the one tool that we need to develop to be able to discern truth. The second aspect that Cindy originally brought in here is the right and wrong aspect. What is right and what is wrong? This requires us to do a little bit of intellectual work. Yeah, we have to define these things, we have to explore them. How do we normally discover what is right for us? How have you discovered, guys, what is right for you? Think about it. It's a bit of a trick question. How have you learned? Learned. Yes. Awareness warrior, absolutely. You have learned what is right for you through what was wrong. Yes, what did not work. That's part of our human condition. Our nervous system is designed that way, guys. You got to understand that. We learn the fastest, so we're making mistakes. Yes, and that's why we need a second tool or a second sort of methodology that we cultivate, and that is trial and error. Correct, Cheryl? We have to allow ourselves to make mistakes. We have to allow ourselves to explore things, to try out what works and what doesn't. Yeah, and that is literally the case, right? What's right today may change tomorrow. The third aspect, the third tool or methodology that we need to cultivate when it comes to being able to discern truth better is to define what Cindy called earlier the higher vibrational path, what the goal is, what it actually is that we're aiming at. And also, we have to use the other two for that, yeah, to investigate possible biases or belief mindsets that can, sometimes make us formulate a goal in a way that may set us up for failure. So what is your goal? What is your overall, basically, yeah? What is it that you have identified for yourself as the greater goal? Not interim goals like I want to make more money, or I want to own my own house, or I want to have a partner and children. Those are not greater goals, guys. Those are just sort of stepping stones toward something. What is the greater goal? well-being, okay, but that's not a very high vibratory goal, if you think about it. And I'm being a little bit of a stickler here, because the words that we speak, they become our logos, they become our prayer here when it comes to forming or defining our goal in life, our life's strategy. Being grounded is not a goal, awareness warrior, that's a technique. Yeah, that's something that you need to cultivate. Nobody can make you be grounded or become more grounded. You have to do that. That's something that you need to cultivate as a, as a habit. Same as, nutrition or exercise. Those are things when it comes to our own well-being, right? They go beyond just, nutrition and exercise and sleep. Yeah, we need to apply our energetic health and our emotional health and our social health into our well-being. That's why I said it's not precise enough. Integrated, yes. So what I hear you say when you say integrated is more like holistic. That's correct. It needs to imply a more holistic goal. Freedom, if you think about it, is something intangible and therefore subject to our personal context. What is freedom for you? What is freedom for me? Tina Marie, freedom is a very high vibratory goal, but it needs to be defined in a very specific way. Cheryl, your goal, I want to be loved, I want to love and be loved, is also a very, very high vibratory goal. But it needs to be defined. Yeah? Yes, we need to define this for ourselves, and only through doing that we can become able to discern. Wonderful. Now we're getting somewhere, to be of service to others without sacrifice. You want to feel loved as you are. Wonderful. But that also needs to be reciprocated, right? With the space to grow. Wonderful. You are defining sort of subsets of your greater goal, namely how you want relationships to be, awareness warrior. These things, you need to write these things down. Because when we are in the middle of sort of working things out in 3D, we often forget what our greater goal is. And that is then what deludes us and what makes it so difficult sometimes to address these things that Becky mentioned in the prayer session, namely to know the difference between needing to stand up for myself or letting something go or simply walking out. We have to match that up. It's a constant sort of matching up with our inner sort of mindset and the goal that is behind that. Cheryl is injecting here the embodiment of my true self. This is New Age talk, okay? Let me call this out here for a sec. Not that it's wrong, but it is something that is so abstract and so virtual, Cheryl, that cannot function as a strategy. You have to define what that is. And you have to narrow it down to what that is. Becky, for example, she narrowed down being of service to others without sacrifice. That's very precise. Yeah, because we all want to be good people and we all want to be, somehow save the world or contribute to feel meaningful in that way. But without sacrifice, meaning without disregarding our own needs and our own wants. What does it mean to you to be a true self, Cheryl? We want to learn how to discern truth, and as the greater goal, to be a true self means that really what I hear you say, and I'm paraphrasing this, I'm just bringing in the precision. Yes, exactly, to live your truth. To live your truth at all times. To live and love in truth. That's what embodying means. If that is your goal, then your journey, your strategy in life has to reflect that. Yes. First of all, you need to be willing to accept truth. You need to be willing to feel truth. And you need to be willing to be truthful with yourself. So one of the big challenges on this journey of becoming able to discern truth is not that there is a missing skill here. We all theoretically have this skill, like Awareness Warrior said, it's innate in us. But it's the actual techniques that we need to get better at it and to discover the error perceptions in there. Because ultimately what keeps us from being able to discern truth are these error perceptions. And these error perceptions can be, as we've talked about earlier, either biases, and with it the whole cluster, dogma and things like that, belief systems. But it can also be blind spots. Yeah? How many times have you been in a situation where you couldn't see truth simply because you had a blind spot there? Yeah? So we have to keep this in mind here when we are investigating what it actually is that we are working towards, and to be 100% congruent with it, to match this up. I can't have embodiment of my true self as a goal and then not being willing to see truth in my relationship, in the way I treat my own body, in the way I talk to myself, in the way I judge other people. Yeah? I can't ask for, other people to not judge me if I still judge them. So truth ultimately is that ability to pick on when something matches up. And the higher the level of this matching up is, the higher the level of integrity. And this is where the word integrity here in this consciousness sense or spiritual science or epistemology comes from. Yeah? The level of integrity measures our level of being in truth, our level of awareness of how we come to viewpoints, to perceptions, and decisions. And so ultimately, what this ability to discern truth is built on is our willingness to be truthful with ourselves at all times. Hey London, I see you. We're talking about the ability to discern truth. Now let's just do a little excursus here before we go into our 20-minute sacred self meditation together. Let's remind ourselves why we even want to be able to discern truth. What is the practical use of being able to discern truth? What are your experiences? Where would you need that in your practical life? Not just in what we did here first, defining our higher vibratory goals and how we can cultivate that. But what would be the use of that? Why would we want to become better at discerning truth? What's the practical use? In order to find the right path forward. Okay. Yes. What else? To honor my inner self. Okay. So that has to do with authenticity, right? And just here, because we're doing energy talk, right? So there's a precision in that here. In order to find the right path forward, also, really what you're saying is the right path forward for you. Yeah, and to be able to see that, what it is. To be more congruent with jobs, living situations, relationships. Yes. To avoid error perceptions. Now this is a good one, Tina Marie. Can we avoid error perceptions? It depends what you use as a tool to perceive. If you use your ego perception as the measuring stick, then you have to conclude that you can't avoid error perceptions because it's always biased. But if you train that consciousness aspect in you, yeah, that aligns you to a higher truth than what your ego can see, then you don't need to worry about error perceptions. We only need to worry about error perceptions if we don't train our consciousness. Because our mind is hardwired with our ego. Our mind will always produce error perceptions. That's a very important premise. You have to understand that no matter how sharp you think you are, that if you think it with your mind, okay, you can never be sure that it is free of your ego bias. If you're asking me, as someone who guides people through these processes as coach and healer, this is the hardest part for people to overcome, to admit to themselves that their mind is ultimately not, or essentially not, able to discern truth. Which then leads to other insights, namely this constant thinking things through and back and forth and, living in this inner stress and inner battle. Yeah, this fragmented place that Cindy mentioned earlier is a waste of energy. Yes. And Annette is bringing in, the ultimate part here, namely that we can live in integrity with ourselves. Yeah. And integrity with ourselves has nothing to do with moral integrity. Integrity with ourselves means that we can feel ourselves and we are aware of ourselves on all levels of being, including our higher consciousness, including spirit, including that spiritual component. And this is a wonderful bridge here for us to go into the 20-minute meditation. I've picked step 11, called neutrality, from our Sacred Self-Healing online course. And by the way, those of you who are already active members of the Sacred Self-Healing course, you should have gotten an invitation for our free workshop for you tomorrow called Integrity and Integration. Thursday, the 14th of October at Don't let me make a mistake here. I have a track record of making a mistake. 9 p.m. Florida time. All right. So right now we're going into our 20-minute meditation that allows us to, and this is the big part here, to experience all that we have contemplated, that we have exchanged, that we have prayed for from within. From within. And that is the answer to all of your questions. How can we learn to discern truth? Two things. We need to train our mind and put it into the right place, because as we understand it now, we know that there is a lot of potential for error when it comes to our mental mind. And we have to add our inner experience to it. And that is then what allows us to go into this place where we take our perceptions, and we know they're just perceptions, and then we take our inner experience and basically learn to merge our heart and our mind. Yeah, it's something that I sometimes call think feeling. It's the higher consciousness that we are allowing or giving a space for that within ourselves. Our verified inner experience of truth. And that takes years and years to practice, because we have to calibrate that with ourselves. What is integrity for me, right? What is right for me? These things we have to calibrate with ourselves to fully feel fulfillment and ultimately know what it actually is that we are looking for, who we truly are, and what our purpose is. This needs to be cultivated and trained. And our society has not yet integrated that into things such as school system or higher learning. All right? You guys, as the pioneers of this, have already identified this need and maybe intuitively sought to do this. And this is how you do it. Mindfulness and higher consciousness work. But it cannot happen without a structure, without a system. You do need to have a training for your mind as well. Because if you cannot detect when you have an error perception, it's really difficult for you to imagine that what you're seeing might just be a tiny fraction of what's truly there. So that requires consciousness training. Yeah, self-report, self-reflection, self-awareness, and what we're doing now, giving yourself that space and time to actually experience things from within. All right, I'm going to turn myself off now, and all you need to do is close your eyes, lean back, and listen to the guided energy process here for the next 20 minutes. Yeah. This went pretty deep. Hit all the spots. Yes, it did. Not everybody is familiar with the chakra system. I am teaching this, and step 11 is obviously already a progressed stage in that sacred self-healing journey, where I have taught sort of the chakra system as a model, as a way to navigate our inner energies. It basically guides us through the fundamental sort of energy processes in our body. We don't have to believe in chakras, not important. It helps us to tune in. It gives us a navigation system, coordinates, if you will. If you are interested in the workbook that comes with each step, and also the community that is formed around this, where we do regular workshops, then please go to my website, transcodes.com, and you can buy these steps either as individual or as total package. it has changed the lives of many, many people. Yes, this conscious awareness journey, guys, that is a path in and of itself. Yes. Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming here today, for contributing to our energy talk, for writing the energy prayer together and celebrating our deeper awareness, our inner experience of higher power, and train our consciousness in this way. Wonderful. Thank you so much. See you again tomorrow at 11:30 for the energy prayer here, Eastern US time on YouTube Live.